Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We're back once more to talk TNA wrestling shenanigans. I want to quickly look at Bound for Glory because we have now got the official announcement for the main event and one other match at the show. It does seem like there's a bit shaking out for the card and the show as we speak. There's a few things that we could sort of speculate about being on the show as well, so we will continue to monitor it and see where we're at and where we're going and that sort of thing as the show and everything's moving along or whatever. We're here right now to have a building time towards Bound for Glory. I guess the biggest thing is to talk about the main event because that was announced. It's been spoiled online for a while, which it's one of those things with the tapings. It's gonna happen, but in a way, it does create a small amount of buzz as well. So that is one of those things that they have kind of got for them in some small way. People have already known that this is going to be probably known that this is going to be the thing for Bound for Glory for a little while. It's been reported online by a few news sources. Nick Nemeth versus Joe Hendry for the world title. I think people believe, bro. We've been talking about Joe Hendry here and there and whatnot, and I've seen it, and we've seen it online, we've seen it in the arenas, we've seen it, wherever he's gone and whatever he's done, he's getting the biggest reactions out of anyone that's on the roster. So this is the point, this is the point that they've been building toward. And this is the time to pull that trigger. It just, in my opinion, honestly, in many ways, this is the time to do it. It sucks in some ways because it's like, well, it's like you don't know the full ramifications or the full, I don't know, the full extent of, what this would mean. As we sort of say, people come to see the journey of these wrestlers. People come to see that culmination, but after that, people kind of get bored and kind of tune out and kind of go, well, now we've seen it. And even for the second or third time or whatever, it's never as special for the first time around. So that's why you've got to milk and milk and milk and milk and milk these sorts of things. And I know that's not what people want. People want a conclusive end in some ways to this show, but just by the data of how people pay to see some of these things, they really should be trying to find ways to extend this or whatever. It sucks, but it's just the way that these things are ultimately pan out and ultimately work, is that you've got to try to make your audience pay as much money over as long as possible for them to see the outcome at which they wish to see. But this is a big event. This is Bound for Glory. They always been marketing it as their biggest show of the year, and in the last few years, it's certainly been quite a big show as well. Been getting bigger and bigger every year, and this year has been their biggest year for a long time. So we've got to think about that. We've got to think that this is, how do we culminate this? This has got to be this has got to be the end. This has got to seem like, like, and there's that problem that you kind of run into of, I don't know why this is, but yeah, it's an issue that TNA unfortunately gets dealt with. Is, like, if you don't satisfy the audience, like in some ways, like people might start feeling like, well, what's the point in continuing to tune in and to continuing to support Joe Hendry and continuing to watch TNA, because it's like, well, not so much swerves, but just like, not pulling the trigger per se or whatever, that sort of thing. So it's a tough situation that they're in. um I think merchandise can play a huge role into this, and I think a lot of people are, you know, putting their stock into that as well. So that is good. So hopefully they will see it as well, you know, uh, you know, worthwhile. And I think this is something that I was talking about before, kind of on another or about another YouTube channel that I've got. I won't dive too deep into it, but I was talking about what makes the best like game experience, like especially for viewers and whatnot. The challenge is the thing that makes the game or whatever the most interesting. Same with wrestling. It's the challenge that the champion has to go through, or the person, whoever it is, Joe Hendry in this case, has to go through to win that title. That's what makes it interesting for people. It's not interesting if it's just like, this is why I was talking about like it what doesn't make much sense for a babyface and a babyface to go up against each other like that much. Like, you can do it, but I don't think that it makes a whole lot of sense. So one of these people has got to start, working heel a little bit, and I think it's going to be Nemeth, because Joe has, that crowd support, and it's just not going to go away. It does remind me somewhat of Daniel Bryan, at WrestleMania 30 or whatever. It sort of feels like that. It feels like, very much, hey, we've spent this whole, well, not year, but sort of, we've spent a long time in many ways kind of trying to get to this point, and now it's here. So, you could say, is this the Royal Rumble or whatever? No, it's not. Like, is he going to get eliminated or not even, like, be in it or whatever, like that sort of thing? Or is it just like something else, like we need to have our, cake and eat it too sometimes, I feel. But this is, as I said, the problem that TNA seems to find itself in, which is really crazy to me, is that people don't, or sort of don't believe that TNA will pull the trigger, or that if they don't pull the trigger, it's, oh lol, same old TNA sort of thing, and whatnot, except for like the last few years where, they've really tried to pull the trigger on literally anyone and everyone as much as they could. They pulled the trigger on Brian Cage. They pulled the trigger on what Johnny Impact. I can't. Johnny Mundo, whatever his name is. They pulled the trigger on Sammy Callahan. They pulled the trigger on Josh Alexander. Who else? I can't. Like, even somebody like Alberto Del Patron or Del Rio, whatever. Uh, they pulled the trigger on him. Basically, literally anyone. Like, when Eddie, not Eddie, when Eric Young returned to the company, they pulled the trigger on him. When Rich Swann was getting hot, they pulled the trigger on him. When Moose had sort of done some stuff there with the system, they pulled the trigger on him for the second time. Like, not so much that Nick Nemeth has been one to pull the trigger on so much, but they have pulled the trigger on him in many senses as well, which that's great. In some ways, like we talk about like you getting this rub from the WWE, sort of exposure and whatnot. People tune in to see, casual people tune in to see people that they know. They know Kurt Angle, guys like that, Nick Nemeth, etc. They know who these guys are. Like people have now found out who Joe Hendry is, and a lot of people are invested in that. Even from the very casual side of, WWE and that sort of thing. He's captured a lot of attention. Perhaps he needs a little bit more than what he has, in my opinion, a little bit, but still he's captured quite a lot, and it's more than what anyone else has done. Sort of. So you can't deny that, and it is very, very good for the company and good for him as well. But it is funny to me to say these things about, people say these things about TNA and whatnot, because like for the last, whatever it was, 4 or so years, all you had in WWE was Roman Reigns getting, assistance from the bloodline. But yet that was apparently the best story in the world ever. And it did have a lot of great twists and turns and whatnot and all of that stuff. I get, and it was a good story. I will say that. It was not a bad story. I'm not kind of trying to criticize it or dunk on it or whatever, anything else. I'm just saying the way that they worked out their finishes for their matches was very predictable. It was always interference, always all this, shenanigans and whatnot, and all of this sort of stuff. And I don't know whether Cody should have won the first time. Okay, sure, he won the second time, whatever. But again, very much the same formula for 4 or so years, or whatever it was. Before that, they were, had the same formula of push Roman Reigns, to the top of the heap. Before that, they had the same formula to push John Cena to the top of the heap. Before that, they had, a lot of very similar, strategies. Even when somebody's popular or whatever, like Steve Austin or The Rock or whatever, it's like, yeah, obviously push them, but it never seems like, or almost never seems like they push anyone secondarily enough, to feel like they're on that level, really. They never let them seem like they're as big of a deal as their number one guy. They're not even the number two guy, really. Like, realistically, they're, floating in there being the number 3 or 4 guy, and no one's really the number 2 guy. Everyone else has to settle for, tie for second place or third place, and whatnot. So it's funny to me that the people criticize TNA for, not pulling the trigger in the, in the past. And certainly they did do that in the past as well, back in the day and whatnot, here and there and whatnot. But WWE has done that too. WWE probably has done it more than anyone, and perhaps, yes, that's because, hey, don't fix what's working type thing, don't fix it if it ain't broke, type thing. I get that, John Cena sells merch. Okay, keep it going, I get that. That's why they didn't, dare to turn him heel, and they didn't dare to go away from him for too long, and whatnot. They were, but that's their own fault of being like, we're too invested in this one person. And that's the same problem that you could find yourself herein, though I don't think you will, because again, you've got other people that are there. You've got Josh Alexander, you've got Moose, you've got a lot of these young kids that are up and coming, that could fill that role, not maybe as well as what Joe is and can at the moment, but hey, they're on the rise and still will do a serviceable job for the company at the end of the day. So again, people need to, chill out and think that, we're going to be where we're going to be in some ways, which does suck sometimes because they definitely deserve a lot more recognition for what they have done, as I sort of say, positively in the last 6 years. Like, they've done a few things that I haven't agreed with and whatever else and that sort of thing. But in the end of the day, have they had success? Yes. Do I run a wrestling company? No. Do you? No. Do we know how to run a wrestling company? Probably not. These people are trying their best with their knowledge and experience to run this wrestling company. And no one bats 1,000 or whatever. No one bats a perfect, set of, things. You've got to tell this story, and whatnot. You've got to have good matches, and you've got to build these matches into, culminating at the end of the day in one moment, or in a few moments that, capture the fans and whatnot, and capture that, elusivity of, relevance, and that's their problem. They're very, very, very good product. Everything that they do is very, very good. The problem is they're just stuck in this sort of space where no one really can hear them shouting at the top of their lungs. Can Joe Hendry, hopefully pull that in? Have to wait and see. So, even again, I think that he's probably winning the title at this juncture, because it just doesn't make any friggin' sense for him not to. And again, I feel like they really, even if they're sort of like a little bit of a swerve to give us something else, or to bypass it, or to set it off for another date or something else, I kind of feel like he is going to win the title, and whatnot. So hopefully that will be the case here, and we'll get to see that. And I think that's the thing. Like, how can you do something, set Joe Hendry up for something, and then make sure people are still invested and will come back for more, and just not feel like, oh man, we got screwed over, or no, it's not just that they're screwing the fans over or screwing Joe Hendry over. They're trying to tell a story, and they're trying to make money out of, again, the chase of the title in professional wrestling, and is, again, this is a thing that wrestling companies for decades, for probably even centuries, have done. So people saying that this is a TNA problem, or a TNA thing, or TNA strikes again, or whatever type thing, are delusional people, and I've got no time for them, but whatever. Anyway, second match that's announced is PCO versus Matt Cardona. This is for the DMC and Canadian North American title. The PCO won. He hasn't really defended that belt. This is like his first defense since he won it, I think. Pretty sure. Anyway, I don't know about this. This is a Monsters Ball too. I feel like PCO is probably winning it. I don't know, dude. Like, it'd kind of be kind of cool to see Cardona win it in some way, in some fashion, because it's like, well, like, PCO, he's PCO. Like, he's a legend, but his time as as a top wrestler, or a whatever, it's over. Really, he needs to look at, okay, how do I go out on a good swan song? How much longer can I do this? Not very long. So I need to wrap this up and have a good last little bit and put somebody over on the way out. You know, Cardona could be that guy. I don't know. Maybe it will, like, it makes some amount of sense. Bound for Glory, big time, match, big time, setting, and when else will PCO retire? I don't know. Like, I don't know, dudes. It's tough to say, but again, it would make some things kind of cool, like, or whatever. And I think, like, it might be tough because, maybe Matt is like, oh, well, I don't want to sign a contract or whatever, or I want to remain a free agent and, just work on a handshake and whatever, and I'll work some dates here and there. I think in some ways it's almost like he's working his way back to WWE to have one more run or whatever. Um, I don't think that precludes him exclusively from winning the title, though, because like Mustafa Ali, he was here on basically a handshake and saying, oh yes, I'll work a few dates or whatever it was, and I'll do some stuff and we'll work together and whatnot. And I do wish that he had stayed or that he would come back or whatever, because he's that damn good. And I think that, TNA actually gave him probably the best, platform to, apply, himself and to showcase himself and to get himself back over and back relevant and showcase to WWE in the world that what he can really do. I like, this is the thing that I say about like the difference between TNA and AEW. It's like anyone who goes over there and just noticed that MVP is going over there, it's like, okay, so Lashley's probably going over there. Yep, cool, whatever, great, good luck, guys. Like, but seriously, good luck to them. But it seems like anyone who and everyone who goes there just falls into this trap of has a really good debut, doesn't do anything for months, then disappears or whatever, just sort of like is floating around and exists. You're just here as part of the wallpaper of the company. You're not going anywhere, you're not doing anything, you're having some matches, and that's about it. Like, everyone that comes to TNA feels like they've got a goal, and it feels like, okay, we're going to work, to build you to that goal and to that place. They took Trinity and said, okay, we're going to give you like 6 months, 8 months, or whatever it is, worth of getting to the title to win the title. Then we're going to give you, few months with the title, and then you're going to drop the title, and you're going to look like a beast, like we're going to make you look good, and you're going to be able to play yourself, but you've got to bring it, but we're going to put everything we can into you, and we're going to make you feel like, man, this is what WWE missed on. They were so stupid, and they did. They made Trinity look like $1 million, perhaps a little bit too much in some ways, but again, they just, anyone that they can, figure out how to do something with and whatnot, they will do it. I was surprised in this week's segment in some ways that Josh Alexander wasn't entirely sincere in his quote unquote new path, or whatever it was, whatever you want to call it. I am quite disappointed in WWE in this regard, but I'll talk more about that. So potential match, I don't know. I could see it being just a tag team match, but I do think that they realize that it probably should be a singles match. Just singles matches often just mean a whole lot more, and this is really between Alexander and EY in a lot of ways, and I think EY is subbing in for AJ here as well. Like, so again, this is more a sign to me that this working relationship really isn't going anywhere significant. This working relationship, at least from WWE's part, is a lot of token gestures, and that's about it. TNA can give all that they want to WWE, but it seems like at the end of the day, WWE is just sending them, again, token gestures and whatnot. And perhaps that's, again, because of just the limited nature of the NXT roster and whatnot. But like when you're bringing on to your NXT roster guys like CM Punk and other people like this from the main roster, yeah, now you're just fucking with us. You're just showing, hey, we can bring anyone onto our NXT roster, but we won't bring them over to TNA. We're not going to help TNA, really. We're just going to send them some token wrestlers, and we'll take whatever, we'll just say, hey, give us this person. And if you don't, whatever. We'll sue you or something or whatever. I don't know. But yes, it does seem very much like, well, obviously WWE holds all the cards and holds all the power. They're the bigger company and whatnot. But I do think that, and it is good in some ways for TNA, but again, I feel like just the fact that they're giving them a whole bunch of just token gestures and a whole bunch of nothing for the most part is just like, nah, this is not a real relationship, and it's not really helping TNA. From where they're going to be, because like it might help them in the short term, sure, but in the long term, where's this going? This isn't going anywhere. There's no plan for this. It's just, here's a token wrestler, here's a token wrestler, here's a token wrestler. Meanwhile TNA is literally sending them the biggest talent, the best talent, the talent that they've worked on for 6 years or whatever it's been, that are really hot right now, and like WWE's just sending them, here's some indie nobody, here's some other indie nobody, like some talented people have come over in this and whatnot, certainly, but not anyone with any real name value. I again don't want to get into the argument that people make that a TNA main event guy is a WWE like job guy or whatever. That's bullshit. Ethan Page was in a TNA tag team, effectively, maybe upper mid card guy. Went to AEW, was basically doing absolutely nothing there. Was barely on TV. He had a great debut, then did a whole bunch of nothing, like just about everyone that goes there. Then come to WWE, instant, NXT main eventer, like. So it doesn't, the talent behind somebody, is more important than their standing every single second of every single week or whatever, because anyone can be pushed to being, the main event guy or whatever, as long as they can connect with that audience and sell tickets. Anyone can do that, and, some people will do it to greater or lesser extent or whatever. But when TNA kind of knows, oh yeah, we always get, roughly the same thing. We've got our diehard people that might not never leave us or whatever, but we're bringing in a few people that go, oh yeah, I'm glad they're, fighting again and, sort of trying again, and they're doing good things, and they've got some, great young talent, and, they're, they really feel better in terms of a lot of just elements. It doesn't feel like, oh man, this company's circling the drain, when's it going out of business? It doesn't feel like that. So, but yeah, you've got to keep everything rolling with positive momentum. You can't just expect this WWE thing to give you what you need, and whatnot to get to where you need to be, you know nationally, internationally, whatever, back to more relevant level, and whatnot. So, because if you're not growing, you're just, you're dying. So that's where they've got to think. Like, they've got to think, right, well, how do we grow? How do we, expand? How do we, get our name out there? How do we, like I said before, get on some other network that has more exposure? That someone has to give them a chance. I think, that's it. So yeah, but that's one potential match. Obviously, I think from the upcoming matches that I think that I thought this before, but I thought it was going to be maybe Full Metal Mayhem between the Hardys, and ABC and the System. Now I'm not thinking it'll be that, but I think, like, if you don't make it Full Metal Mayhem, it'll sort of, like, not tarnish, but it'll be a little bit of a letdown for people, because people know the Hardys for that style of match, tables, ladders, chairs, etc. So, not making it that match makes it feel like, well, why aren't you doing Full Metal Mayhem, especially at the biggest show of the year? So I feel like, yeah, that's probably going to happen. I feel like, Wentz and Speedball for the X Division title again, probably. Not 1,000%, but, like, does seem somewhat logical. Jordan Grace versus Rosemary for the Knockouts title, seems likely. There's a few, like, sub rivalries happening and whatnot, that sort of thing. I feel like, kind of, what would you say? Like Dino versus Jake. I don't know whether that's going to play out at Bound for Glory. Maybe it will, but if it is, it's probably like a pre-show match. It's an alright match, but it's probably not. Or maybe it'll be a tag match. I don't know. But again, it just doesn't feel like that would be that big of a, like, thing. I do feel like perhaps I don't know whether to call them militia, because they're not the militia anymore, because the militia and Marsha aren't together. But yeah, Alicia and Marsha, maybe in a singles match, maybe in a tag team match. I feel like a tag team match it's more, like, I think it's more personal between them. Like, a tag team match would just, again, make it feel like, well, this is just a pre-show, filler match or whatever. I feel like probably as well the pre-show will probably be 1 hour. So, that will help some of the matches that are on the pre-show, but it makes the whole show 4 hours. But still, it's still probably, well, worth the time. It's not like it's going to be too long, I don't think. So, there's still some stuff that feels like it's kind of brewing along the way, and whatnot. So, like you sort of feel like there's something happening with Leon Slayer there, but it's like, well, this is not like gonna explode this week, whatever. So like, well, this isn't gonna come to a head this week. You start to wonder, well, what are some of these other people gonna do? What's Callahan gonna do? Feels like he's not really doing anything. What's Gresham gonna do? That sort of thing. What are these other people that they're gonna do? What's Hammerstone gonna do? Maybe a lot of these people will be in the quarter shot gauntlet, like, or whatnot. So, but yeah. Something that did come out was that the tapings Spartanburg have had to be changed their dates due to hurricane. So obviously, best wishes to everyone in that area with the hurricane coming through. despite, you know, whatever political or ideological differences people have, you know, having that kind of natural disaster going on is something that everyone feels, you know, sympathy for, you know, the people that are on the ground at the in the places that are affected, and you know, hopefully they'll be able to, you know, weather this storm and whatnot, and it won't be too bad. But yes, hope for the best there. But with in regards to the dates, they have changed the dates slightly, so, and hopefully they won't be changed too much more. But and I do hope that there is not, well, maybe refunds, but like, just like, hey, you know, we had to change our date from Saturday to Monday or whatever it was. Let's just give these people that paid for Saturday some Monday tickets, you know, just for free. You know, it's the same thing on a different day. You know, just roll them over. You know, like, guys, come on. You know, like, so hopefully that will be, or maybe just say, hey, look, I have, you know, bring the ticket to the thing and say, hey, look, I have the ticket for whatever, this, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you've paid, get in. You know, you just have your ticket and roll up and say, hey, look, I bought, or, you know, or an online stub or whatever, you know, the email, hey, look, I bought tickets. You know, yep, sure, you've got row, whatever, or your general admission, whatever, you know, like, come on in, you know, like, get in there, boy, you know, whatever. So, but yeah, we'll keep our eye on all of these things and developments as they're coming along. Yeah, we'll have a bigger overview of the upcoming card when it's more set in stone. I'm sure there's going to be lots of spoilers anyway, but still, we'll have a bit more of a look at it much closer to the date, and preview or post review as well. I'm still working on trying to get some more creators involved, and try to get onto some discussions and whatnot out there. So wait and see if I can get those. So I'll start messaging and annoying people a little bit more now as well, so that we can get those things set up. Yeah, we'll see how we go. But anyway, guys, hope you have enjoyed this one, and hope you will join me again in another one.